Hi, YouTube. God, I am so sorry. Gosh, I cannot get YouTube to start a live stream. It just won't do it. And on my practice runs, it was fine, but maybe there's just so much going on right now with YouTube that I don't know, it kept kicking me off. Anyway, you know what? I am determined I am going to do this show, and I'll just have to load this up when I'm finished. The topic is the supernatural. Now, most of us know that there are spirits. There are good spirits and bad spirits. What you need to know is how to identify them. And I am going to tell you some really creepy stories that happened to me, which at the time I had no idea. Okay, so usually, like on Facebook, I always do like stories and write out, some stories and stuff like that. Well, I'm not doing that on Facebook anymore, but I'm going to do it on YouTube because it's more interesting when you're actually looking at somebody rather than just reading. That's my thoughts anyway. Anyway, this is very strange. This is about me and my twin sister. Now, when we had gone to Paradise and we were shown all this stuff, we came back and there was a conversation that I was told that basically my sister would prophesy to me and I'd prophesy to her. I really didn't know what that meant. And I saw that she had gotten very, very rich, beyond rich, because basically that's what she wanted and she got it. But I kind of knew there was something weird about it when it all came into play. And I knew there would be about 10 years. 10 great years. She would go to Israel. She would go all over the place. She blessed me so much. Just helped me out a lot, money-wise. And it was just such an awesome thing to um, just to have a little bit of money, when I don't know, I never really got into materialistic things. And well, at this time, I was kind of living vicariously through her. And I'd visit her a lot and things like that in California. Well, now to get to the story. Really weird thing was right at the very beginning of the first of the year, I had a dream. And the dream involved a big, huge spider. And every time in the past when I had spider dreams, three things would always go wrong, drastically wrong. I mean, I'd have dreams of like thousands of these spiders like encasing me. And then sure enough, I'd have this horrible luck. Well, anyway, the spider dream wasn't about me. It was about my sister. And it was like this big black spider kind of lurking in the background, in the dark. And I'm like, this is very strange. So I was just sitting there, I wanted to tell her, but I didn't know what it was about. So I kind of held off, and I kept having more dreams of her until I had the very last dream, which made me say, I need to say something to her. I was watching her. She was like in the backyard at my dad's house, and she was grown and everything. But the weird thing about it is she looked really, really, really sad, and I was like, what's going on? And so in my dream, I walked up to her, and I said, don't give up, you know. And she said, okay, but I could tell that she was giving up. And I said, we'll figure something out. And then her teeth fell out. And I said, you need, I know it's kind of funny, but you need to put your teeth back in your mouth. And she didn't have dentures or anything, but so she put her teeth back in her mouth, and she said, I'll try some more. So I'm like, okay, well then I knew what that was. It was her death, because it was leading up to it, and it was 6 months before her death. So I just thought, I gotta tell her, so I told her the dream, and she said, sounds like I'm gonna die. And I said, yes, you're going to die. And it's going to be in about 6 months. You can prevent this from happening, maybe, but it involves your prescription medication. So we talked a lot and everything. I mean, we just went through everything in her life, and it was so weird, like preparing her for this death. And I was always praying, just trying to prevent it from happening. Well, the weird thing was, as time grew nearer, there's some really weird things leading up to her death, which involved her husband, and it was during the Christmas season, and she called me up and she said, I had a really weird dream. And she said this dream was about Jeff, her husband, gave her a big box, and he said, open this right now. And it was weird because it wasn't even Christmas time. But she opened it, and there was a box inside of a box inside of a box inside of a box, and they were all empty. So it was kind of strange, and she's like, what does that mean? And I said, I think he is trying to tell you to move out, to leave. It might be like a breakup thing. And well, she was very distraught, and then her husband told her that he was having an affair with one of the renters at one of their houses. And of course that wasn't true, but at the time she had already gone through so much BS from this guy that she didn't really know. Well, after that, I just kept praying. I kept telling her, don't worry about it. I think we got the medication thing all under control. Well, she had an issue that came up, that it was about the renter in that house, and she was going to go talk to her. I'm going, no, don't do it, don't do it. And, well, her husband, just kept, like, just telling her, like digging in, putting salt into a wound. It was so weird. And they both had a friend who was an ex-police officer. Well, she called the police officer and had him come over to pick her up, and they were going to go over to the rental house and talk to the lady. And I was like, don't do it. The very, very bad idea. And she had been drinking, and not just wine. It was like hard stuff. And I'm just like, don't do it. Don't do it. Well, she said she had to go, but she was going to call me back. And then she never called me back. After that, it was about 6 hours or so had passed. I'm like, I couldn't get a hold of her, and I was like, I don't know. Anyway, she called me from the police station, and they were putting her into a 72-hour hold. That police officer who she trusted called, and she went in to the store to get some pop or something, and then when she came back, they were waiting because he was waiting out in the car. Well, if that wouldn't have happened, she probably would be alive today. But she was on all sorts of prescription medications, including benzodiazepines for sleep and just for anxiety. She also was on like major pain pills, morphine, all sorts of things because of a back issue. This big, huge door hit her back, and it just like really messed her up. Anyway, so what happened was she had to stay there for the 72 hours, and when she got out, during that whole entire time, they had not given her any of her medications, nothing. And so when she got out, she was in total withdrawal. And I can't believe, I think that's like cruel and unusual punishment. So, it was so weird. She called me up, and she also had another issue with speeding ticket, driving to Arizona. And there's a patch where it's just nothing there, but just open. And people drive through there going about 100 miles an hour. Anyway, she got caught going like 120 miles an hour. So she had that speeding ticket, and then she had this deal going on, and now she was in major withdrawal. And I was like trying to help her all I can. She's just like, there was a sleeping medication that Marilyn Monroe, what she died on, and I didn't know it. It was like a liquid and like a syrup. And she said, well, I can't get ahead of this pain, in her back and her body and the withdrawals and everything. So she said, do you think it would be okay if I took more of this sleeping medication? And I said, I don't see why not. I mean, you probably need to get some sleep too, you got all this on your mind. So she's like, hold on. She's like, she started out on Friday. She got out on Thursday, and then Friday, then Saturday I was going to out of town for New Year's Eve and going to the beach. And so that Friday night, we were talking a lot. And it was so sweet. She sent me a cell phone. It's one of those throwaway kind, but because she wanted to like stay in contact with me. And because the first I told her, the day of your death is January the 1st, and it will be between 1 and 1:30 in the afternoon. So we were both really watching that day, and I said, well, I think we got it all under control, you know, and I really thought we had, but she was taking that medication. And oh my gosh. And, you know, her husband was acting weirder and weirder. And this is the weird thing, too, is he was a pharmacist, or is a pharmacist, and he owned his own pharmacy. So the weird thing about that is he should have said something to her, but he didn't. So anyway, I was like Friday night, I was just telling her, you know, don't worry, I think we got it under control. But I had got the phone. I said, I'm going to keep it charged up and buy me. I'll talk to you Saturday. Sunday was New Year's Eve, and then I was going to go back home on Monday. So I left. Saturday, she called me and left a message. It was just, she said that her back was just like on fire, and her whole body felt like it was on fire. And I said, well, I called her back. I said, you know, maybe you should go to the doctor or something, go to urgent care, because that doesn't sound normal. And she's like, she didn't really want to. She didn't want to leave the house. She was really depressed, and so I was like, I can't help you from here, you know. But if it were me, and I hate doctors, I hate the hospitals, I would have gone in, especially being in that much pain. But anyway, it was, so Saturday night was, you know, I was thinking she was probably going to be okay. Well, that night, Saturday night, I had eaten some Cold Stone ice cream, and I got this terrible reaction from it. I mean, I've never gotten such a reaction from anything. I mean, my whole stomach was bloated, and I was itchy, and I had a headache, and so I'm just like, I told everybody I'm going to go to bed. Then Sunday came, and everybody wanted to go into the town and do some window shopping, you know, do the thing, going to shop to shop. So we did, but during that time, well, that whole time, I forgot to tell you that this huge storm came in, and it knocked out everything, all the lights, the telephone, everything. So I wasn't able to get a hold of her. So Sunday rolled around, and we were shopping around, and we got there about 10 in the morning. And like 10:30 came around, and something felt like it was tugging, like ripping, like my spirit was being ripped and torn apart. And at 11 o'clock, I was just like, I gotta get a hold of her. I had the phone, and, you know, it just rang busy. I'm like, I gotta do this. And as each moment passed, I wanted to run. I knew something was up, but there is no way of getting a hold of her. It was now about, it was like 12:50, and I was like, well, I'm going to go back to the car, and I wanted to call her. So I got in the car, I was alone, and I was sitting there, and it rang. Finally, it was, but nobody picked up. And then it was like about 1 o'clock, and it was like, it just rang and rang and rang, and I'm like, what is going on here? Then, I don't know, that there was a song that came on. It was by Seal. Um, the one about the Rose one. You know what I'm talking about? And there was another one. They were like playing Seal for some reason. So I'm sitting there and going, I mean, I felt like I was physically dying. So I'm like, what is going on? And then that night, we went to go see Narnia. And we came back, and I was like, there's something wrong. And I went to bed early. I kept trying to call. And again, it just rang and rang and rang. So I was like, what is going on? But I figured, well, because I didn't know about the sleeping medication or anything like that, I figured, maybe she just is getting some rest finally. That night, Sunday night, I went to bed early, and suddenly I felt something. I mean, I was like dead asleep. And I'm like, I looked up, and it was my sister standing there. She was like, and her head was down, and then she walked around the bed, and there was a chair that was underneath a high window. And she just sat down. And I'm like, what is going on? And she said, it happened. I said, what happened? She said, I died. I said, I was woken up from this. I mean, I was just like trying to understand this, blinking my eyes and just looking at her like, what? I don't understand this. She said, yeah, I died. And I'm like, no, I can get to you, okay? I'll get a plane ticket and I will go over. And she's like, well, you won't be able to because I'm not going to be there. And this is really kind of interesting because I said, well, I have this, blanket I've been making you. You can put it on your bed and it'll make you feel nice and warm and fuzzy. And she stood up, and this is kind of weird, but she brought up the very same casket that she was buried in. But the weird thing is, I guess in the spirit form, you're able to make these images. I mean, she was holding it, and then she was standing over it. Well, I don't know. I've told this story before, but she was finally just kind of like upset with me because I was like, I'm going to go visit you. And she's like, I'm not going to be there. And then she walked to the, over to this corner, and there was a black veil. I'm not kidding. A black veil, kind of see-through. And she stood in halfway and halfway out, and she was staring at me. And I'm like, I got this weird, like, overwhelming, sleepy feeling. And I'm like, well, I'll just call you in the morning. And she looked at me. I can't even make that look. It was like she was giving me like a death glare. And I'm just like, what is going on? I just don't understand this. So anyway, I went to sleep and that look was kind of haunting me. Well, then the next thing I knew is she just came and got me in my spirit. And she took me over to her bedroom, the place where she died. And the very first moment when we got in there, she just laid down on the bed and she goes, "There's no rest there." And I said, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." And she started telling me that when she first got there, this was like in her teenage kind of druggy days. There were some of those people died of overdoses, and she found them and they were like mocking her and making her feel kind of even threatened. And then they started chasing her. They were like saying, you said that you went to heaven and everything, but you ended up just like us. And she's like, and they wanted to kill her. So what I wanted to say about that, when people die and they're on the bad side, they're alone. But it is like a deep sleep that they cannot wake up from until the appointed time. Either the Great White Throne Judgment or it's going to be during the millennium. So she was showing me these things that was happening to her that were from old unrepented sins. And I was like, oh my gosh. She goes, I got to find a safer place to go. I can't be in that one place. I just don't know where to go. And it was like a maze in there. It was like, okay, it was like a stone wall, smooth stone wall. And it was very dark. And the further, okay, so you walk basically through the first door. And as you go in, the hallway is really narrow. And you still have, the stone walls. And it's like a labyrinth. You just go through. And then it leads to like an outer place. And that outer place, it is like a desolate place. It's very dark and ashy. And what it reminds me of is, what is that movie? Like Haunted Hill or something like that. But it is very dark. And I was like, when I had seen her, when she was showing me this, what was going on with her, I felt like she was really mad at me, like she was blaming me for her in her spot, and I'm just like, what do I do? Well, it ended up badly because I just said, look, I don't want to listen to you being upset with me. There's nothing I can do for you. And she's like, well, you can pray. See, if I would have been more connected to other people, then they could be praying for me, which I did not know about. But the thing is yes, you can pray for the dead. And that's kind of something that we don't do in Western society. But I don't know how it gets there, but it goes through, and everybody can like hear it. But it's like delivered to that one person that it's supposed to be delivered to. Anyway, that was the weirdest thing. There was also a really weird thing that also happened. It was my dad, and he was always kind of. I never knew where I stood with him. Now you'd have to tiptoe around, and you couldn't be spontaneous, and it was like walking around him was kind of scary. But I remember one time he said, he goes, I always know what you're doing. And I'm like, how, like you have eyes in the back of your head. And he's like, no. He goes, there's a man that comes and talks to me by my bed at night and tells me what you're doing. I see, why? That's kind of gross, But he said he was a white, bald man. And I'm like going, why would you talk to someone like that? He said that was Jesus. And I'm like, that's not Jesus. But he was convinced. And I'm just like, okay. Oh my God. This is just really freaky. But I was telling him, that I didn't think that was Jesus, and he got really, really upset with me. So I'm like, okay, he can't, and he really thinks, and he was, I call it religiosity, kind of a hypocrite, and he always felt like he was like better than everybody else. And so I was like, I knew that there was a time coming, it was like a benchmark that he was going to die. And it's like the time came when I had to tell him. It's like I didn't know how to say it. But it was more or less like grace, like get your life in order because the end of the road is coming. Well, he died. It was like 3 months after. But the weird thing is the day that he died, he had like a major heart attack, and he was put on like the life support and the machines and everything. And he wasn't really alive, but the day that he like left his body, basically, and the machines were basically keeping alive, that day, 3 months after he had that heart attack, I was very, very tired that day. And I never take a nap in the middle of the day, but I was just really tired, and it was like on a Saturday. And just normally I don't do that, but I just like, I gotta go take a nap. So I went upstairs into my room, and I was laying down on my side, and I was facing the wall, and I was kind of looking at it. You know how you can lay down and then suddenly your eyes are open and you're like, oh. Anyway, I was thinking, should I get up now or what? And all of a sudden, I kid you not, there was this white, creepy man who was standing right beside me. I have never seen him in my life, but it's like I knew that my dad had just died, and like this was like the person that he was talking to. And I'm like, oh, and I looked up at him, and At that time, I knew about, commanding spirits away and stuff, but I was so shocked. And I'm like thinking, see, nobody ever told me that my dad had a heart attack or that he was in the hospital. He like forbid it. He was like, don't tell her. And even don't tell her when I do die, because he knew he was going to die. So I had no idea. I had to put this all together after he died and when I found out. Anyway, this guy who was really tall, and I was laying down, and I was going to roll over and try and get out of bed. And he came down like this. Boom, and he like reached into my chest. And it was going like this. It's like, and I said, in the name of Jesus, I command you to leave. He was trying to pull out my heart. And I'm just like, God. Well, he put his hand up like this. And like kind of shocked. And I said, get out of here. He disappeared. But see, people can have these spirits around them and think that they are good spirits and be completely deceived. And he claimed to be this awesome Christian, but he was more of like a Jim Jones kind of guy. Seriously, he was. He wanted us to go live at this commune. And it's like to uproot everybody and just go live at a commune. Blah. Anyway, I'm just like, it's kind of upsetting thinking about it that now. And, I don't know. But, I got a list of stuff. I'm really sorry about the live stream. It was doing fine when I checked it. I'm just like, why won't it go? And it's kind of weird that, I don't know. That's weird. It was like something was preventing me. But Halloween really is a kind of a weird time. People can actually be cursed, have like spirits, like witches curse you. I didn't know this. I'm going to tell you something really weird that happened to me. There was this guy. He was a lot younger than me, but I don't know. For some reason, I thought he was interesting and stuff, but every time I saw him, I didn't think it was a big deal until one time. It was like my heart started fluttering and I was like totally in love with this guy. And I'm like, well, that's weird because I really don't know him and we don't talk outside of whatever we're doing now. So, but it just kept getting more intense and intense. And it got to the point where, I don't know, it didn't seem natural to me. Like he had cast a spell or something on me. Well, I had gone over and talked to some of his friends, and he was heavily into witchcraft and had been for most of his life. And so I was pretty sure that he had cast this spell on me to like be in love with him. And I was a Christian, but I think somehow I must have like opened doors or something to let this guy in. And anyway, I decided, I didn't really want to, like be friends or anything with him anymore, so I just kind of ignored him. The next thing, this weird stuff always happens in my bed, but anyway, it was like really early morning, and I got this really creeped out feeling. It was like, October actually. It was in October, and I just got this weird feeling like something was like staring at me. I'm like, I look up, and I kid you not, he was standing at the foot of my bed, but not looking like, like a body, but like ashy, smoky. And he was staring down at me like he was really, really mad at me. And I'm just like, what is he doing here? See, I must have somehow, I was anointing my house at the time, but I really think I was letting it in somehow. Because if you anoint your house, that stuff won't even touch your place. Anyway, I just kept staring at it, and then it looked this way and then looked back at me, looked over that way, like really mad, and then just like shut off. But in that, like all the ash, and it plumed up. It was like poof, gone. I think that is like a way. They can't do that, but I don't think it was actually him. I think it was like an evil spirit that came to me. I think it's called astral projection. It could have been him. Anyway, this during Halloween, it's kind of their time, and this is like when it's like very powerful, and you can get hexed very easily if you're not protected. That's why I wanted to mention that, because if you start like getting like these negative thoughts, and you just kind of feel off, let's turn as well, then, and it doesn't feel normal to you, I'm gonna tell you, you gotta check it out, because you might have made somebody mad inadvertently. And also, witches pray or do casting prayers against us. So I'm just saying, what evil spirits are, these are the half-breeds, the Nephilim, the giants of old. They aren't redeemable, and they stay here on earth. So people that, like when you die, you go up. But a lot of times these demonic things will come to you. Like, well, I know that my sister was my sister because we had actually prearranged that. But, like my dad's spirit, that weird old thing that came to me, and that was definitely an evil spirit. And I don't know. It's just, you gotta really, really be careful, especially now. it just seems like the world is getting worse. Just kind of chaotic. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I just feel like this evil wickedness is growing even more and kind of gaining territory. And Halloween is a good time to get cursed. That's what I really think. And but oh, and that one spirit I was telling you about, my niece, and when I had anointed her house, and it was like her ex-mother-in-law or something like that. Anyway, she was coming over. Well, when she came to the door, now this after I anointed, she stopped, like, and it was like she was struggling with something. It was so weird. And I'm just like looking at her like, and I looked at my niece, I'm like, what? I mean, it looked like a struggle. And I was just like, wow, this is so weird. And that was the first time that I saw the anointing oil actually work. So when she came in, she was really nice and changed. Well, after the whole party thing, my niece wanted to have a relationship with her. Wow. I had talked to her, about about a year after that, asking her how things were going and stuff with her. And she said, Angie she's even worse than before. See, when you this is why it's so important, if you've been bothered by these demonics, they're oppressive or whatever, and you get delivered from it, you have to put Christ over your head. If you don't, it's just you're an open invitation for them to come back and even more. So I don't know if a lot of people start anointing and, a lot of people, that come to your door, these things are going to have to jump off. No, I would say, we're already coming up to troubled times. But I just always keep the anointing and the Holy Spirit and Christ over your head. I see just the storms increasing, not just here in America, but everywhere. And I had seen the whirlwinds, the big cyclone storms everywhere, all over the world. And as we got closer to tribulation, it just got worse and worse. And the darkness got more around the globe. It was so weird until the earth itself was completely covered, and poor earth was just sitting there like trembling. That is going to be a terrible time, because that's like a spiritual thing, and we're heading up to that. I don't know how much time we have left. Like I said, when some of these markers, there's like 3 more markers that I have to do, that I'm waiting for, and just some benchmarks and signs. Anyway, I will tell you when they happen. And I should be able to because really the communication and stuff like that shouldn't be taken down until the war and when this civil war begins. But you gotta be ready at that point, because it's gonna get crazy. And right now it feels like a lull, but it also, I can feel it ramping up all at the same time. So get your spiritual gear on, these Satanists and witches and warlocks, they study. They want power for themselves. Oh, and this is, I was going to say, the witches and everything, they're looking to be like gods themselves. Well, think about this. In this new age kind of religion and the Christian church going into it, it is all becoming like self-love and self-acceptance into all the religions. That is very dangerous. So somebody might say that they're a Christian, but they're quite contrary to the word. And so we're going to have to deal with a lot of that too. And some may have them in your family, which makes it even harder. Especially if you know the truth and, how do you tell them you're already getting deceived? You're in the New Age movement. They're going to be uniting all the religions together. I don't know. But this Halloween is coming up. I really didn't want Sophie to go trick-or-treating, but I have nowhere else to take her. And all of her little friends are going. And she's already having a hard time, so I'm going to let her go, but I don't think that's a good idea. It just keeps telling me, don't do it. Anyway, I hope I don't live to regret that. Oh no. Anyway, I'm sorry about the live stream. I am so sorry. It's so weird how that happened. Anyway, once I get that figured out and what went wrong, then I will go ahead and try it again. But I'm going to do like major tests over and over. And I had done that. That's the weird thing about it. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.